What would you do if you were a diver and, during one of your explorations, you came face to face with this? If this were you, how would you feel? Because what we're seeing is a sperm whale. More than just a marine animal, it's a titan, a colossus, a monster of the deep, often feared even by the Navy. Sperm whales can reach lengths of up to almost 20 meters and weigh more than a locomotive. But that's not what's most unsettling about this animal. What's most unsettling, besides its teeth, is an ability that seems otherworldly. A sonic pulse they produce that could neutralize even the Kraken. Get ready to learn all about it. But before we go deeper into this, I want to see how far our community reaches. Comment below with the city and country you are watching from. You might just find someone else in your area who loves these topics just as much as you do. Now then, let's continue. Imagine a vibration so intense it doesn't enter your ears, it enters your marrow. At 230 decibels, a sperm whale's click is the loudest biological event on the planet. It is louder than a Saturn V rocket at ignition. If you were submerged alongside this predator, the pressure wave would not simply deafen you. It would vibrate your internal organs until they reached their resonant frequency, essentially liquefying your soft tissue from the inside out. This is not a call. It is a biological hammer striking the anvil of the deep. The United States Navy did not discover the true power of this pulse by studying marine biology. They discovered it during the height of the Cold War, while monitoring the SOSUS hydrophone arrays. They were tracking a silent metallic contact moving through the Hadal Zone, depths where the hydrostatic pressure exceeds 16,000 pounds per square inch. This object was cruising at depths that should have reduced any known titanium hull to scrap metal. When the Navy's acoustic analysts finally isolated the signal, they didn't find the rhythmic churn of a propeller. They found a series of sharp, mechanical pulses that mimicked the sperm whale, but carried the mathematical precision of an encrypted handshake. This was the first recorded handshake with the abyss. Look at the scale of a human diver next to the bleached skull of a mature bull cachalote. You are a ghost standing before a god of the machine age. Navy divers are strictly forbidden from approaching these animals within 30 meters. It is not because of their teeth or their size. It is because a single, focused click can stop a human heart instantly. We have spent centuries believing we were hunting a source of fuel. In reality, we were hunting a biological cannon that the military is only now beginning to understand. The anatomy of the sperm whale is perhaps the greatest biological deception in the history of the natural world. While mainstream marine biology describes the massive, blunt head as a storage unit for buoyancy-regulating oil, the technical reality is far more ominous. The head of a sperm whale makes up more than 1/3 of its total body mass, and it functions as a biological phased array sonar system. To a sonar technician, this isn't a forehead. It is a high-gain parabolic reflector. Inside this colossal structure lies the Spermaceti organ, a complex reservoir containing nearly 2,000 liters of waxy oil. This substance is the key to the whale's lethal capabilities. Standard science suggests this oil changes density to help the whale sink or rise. However, declassified acoustic dossiers suggest a much more sophisticated application. This oil acts as a variable density acoustic lens. By shifting the temperature of the oil through controlled blood flow, the whale can change the oil from a liquid state to a semi-solid crystalline structure in seconds. This transformation allows the whale to manipulate sound waves with the precision of a laser. It can take a wide, low-frequency search pulse and collapse it into a narrow, hyper-concentrated beam of sound. At 4,000 meters below the surface, the physical laws of sound change. The water is denser, colder, and more conductive. In this environment, the sperm whale's head becomes an acoustic searchlight. The mechanism begins at the monkey lips, a pair of muscular valves located near the blowhole. When air is forced through these valves, it creates a snap of such high energy that it triggers a phenomenon known as cavitation. These tiny bubbles of vacuum collapse with such force they momentarily generate temperatures near the surface of the sun, a process called sonoluminescence. This initial pulse is then reflected off the back of the skull, which is shaped exactly like a radar dish, and fired forward through the Spermaceti lens. For centuries, we slaughtered these creatures to harvest this oil. We burned it in our street lamps and used it to lubricate the most delicate machinery of the Industrial Revolution, including the chronometers used by the British Admiralty. We were unknowingly burning the most advanced acoustic lubricant and thermal conductor on the planet. This oil does not merely hold heat, it manages the immense friction of sound waves traveling at 1,500 meters per second through biological tissue. It is the only substance known to man that can withstand the repetitive stress of 230 decibel pulses without breaking down at the molecular level. The sophistication of this biological radar is unparalleled. When the whale fires its beam, it doesn't just see a silhouette in the water. It achieves what the Navy calls acoustic illumination. It sees through the flesh of its prey. It can map the skeletal structure of a giant squid, detect the density of its beak, and monitor its nervous system from a distance of over 500 meters. It knows your heart rate before you are even aware of its presence. It knows the thickness of a submarine's hull and the exact location of the reactor core. This leads to a chilling realization regarding the evolution of the species. The skull of the sperm whale has evolved over 15 million years into a shape that perfectly mimics the parabolic reflectors used in top-secret military radar and long-range acoustic devices, or LRADs. If this is a product of natural selection, then nature has spent millions of years perfecting a weapon of war. But the military implications go deeper. The Navy has long been fascinated by the museau de singe, the mechanical trigger of the whale's pulse. In laboratory settings, engineers have struggled to replicate the efficiency of this biological trigger. We are attempting to build machines that can do what these animals do instinctively: project a beam of sound so focused it can trigger a biological EMP. In the deep trenches of the world's oceans, the sperm whale doesn't hunt like a shark or a killer whale. It doesn't need to bite. It uses its pulse as a kinetic weapon. When it locates a target, it increases the frequency of its clicks until they merge into what is known as a creak. At this point, the acoustic energy is so high that it can physically stun or paralyze prey. The squid's nervous system is overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data, causing a total muscular shutdown. The whale isn't just a predator, it is a mobile electronic warfare platform. The Navy's fascination with this biological cannon reached a fever pitch when they realized the whales were using the deep sound channel, or the SOFAR channel. This is a horizontal layer of water in the ocean with a combination of temperature and pressure allows sound to travel for thousands of miles without losing its intensity. There is evidence in classified logs that pods of sperm whales use this channel to communicate across entire ocean basins. They aren't just talking, they are sharing tactical data. If you look at the geometry of a sperm whale pod during their rest cycles, you will see them suspended vertically in the water column, motionless like gray pillars. To the Navy, this is a familiar sight. It is a sensor array. By spacing themselves at specific intervals, the whales create a giant, living sonar grid that can detect the movement of anything, be it a squid or a nuclear submarine, moving through a 100 square mile radius. We must ask ourselves why a biological creature would require the ability to focus sound beams capable of melting sonar shielding. Why does it need a skull that functions as a radar dish? The answer lies deeper than the hunting of squid. It suggests that the sperm whale was designed, or evolved, to operate in a theater of war that humans are only now beginning to perceive. They are the sentinels of the Hadal Zone, equipped with the most advanced acoustic hardware on Earth, patrolling the dark corridors of the Mariana Trench. When you hear that rhythmic clicking in the dark, you aren't hearing the song of a whale. You are hearing the sound of a biological system locking onto its target. You are hearing the pulse of a machine that has been refining its lethality since before the first human ever stepped into the sea. This is why the Navy fears the pulse. They know that in the deep, whoever controls the sound controls the world. The darkness at 3,000 meters is absolute, but for the sperm whale, it is illuminated by a strobe light of sound. Here, the legendary battle between the cachalote and the colossal squid takes place, but it is nothing like the illustrations in Victorian textbooks. It is not a wrestling match of tentacles and teeth. It is a calculated sonic execution. When the whale encounters a colossal squid, a predator that can reach 14 meters in length and weighs over 1,000 pounds, it does not engage in a physical struggle. It stays at a distance, hovering like a silent bomber, and begins to fire. The creak frequency it emits is so high energy that it creates a localized pressure wave. This isn't just noise, it's a kinetic strike. The squid's sophisticated nervous system, designed to detect the slightest vibrations in the water, is suddenly overloaded by a signal 200 times more powerful than its biological threshold. Yet, marine biologists have recovered bull whales with scars that defy the known limits of the colossal squid. We're talking about circular suction marks the size of trash can lids, nearly 60 centimeters in diameter. If the largest known squid on Earth only produces marks a fraction of that size, what exactly is the whale fighting in the Hadal Zone that is even larger? There is a gap in our biological records, a shadow predator that requires the whale to use its maximum acoustic output just to survive the encounter. This mystery deepened in the 1990s when the Navy's SOSIS arrays, the silent sentinels of the seafloor, recorded a recurring pulse at 5 Hz. To produce a sound at that frequency with that much power, calculations suggest an animal would need to be at least 3 times larger than the largest blue whale ever recorded. It is a frequency that resonates with the hulls of our deepest diving submersibles, a low-frequency hum that suggests something massive is moving in the deep, and the sperm whales are the only ones keeping a constant acoustic lock on it. The whale's stun gun effect is essentially a biological EMP. When the pulse hits the prey, it causes a cavitational collapse within the prey's own body tissues. The squid doesn't die from a bite, it suffers a total system failure. Its muscles seize, its heart rate flatlines, and it floats motionless, paralyzed by a sound it never heard coming. The military has seen the devastating effects of this interference firsthand. Recent declassified logs from the USS Jimmy Carter, the Navy's most secretive Seawolf-class spy submarine, mention an encounter in the Pacific where a pulse of unknown origin was so loud it effectively blinded the submarine's active sonar for 4 hours. The technicians didn't classify the source as a whale. They didn't call it an animal at all. They designated it Biological Acoustic Interference Number 9. The logs suggest the submarine was caught in the crossfire of a massive acoustic exchange, a handshake between two entities that temporarily turned the Jimmy Carter into a hunk of death-blind steel. To understand the whale is to accept that we are dealing with an alien intelligence that has shared the planet with us for millions of years. The brain of a sperm whale is nearly 6 times the size of a human brain. It possesses a highly developed paralimbic system, the area responsible for processing emotions, and social complexity. While humans communicate with limited vocal cords, whales communicate in codas, complex rhythmic patterns of clicks that carry a density of information we are only beginning to decode. Imagine a pilot flying through a thick cloud layer and suddenly seeing 50 massive gray pillars standing perfectly motionless in the air. This is the drifting forest. It is how the Navy feels when they stumble upon a pod of sperm whales in the dead of night. They don't sleep horizontally like other mammals. They stand vertically, suspended in the water column like silent monoliths. During these periods, they aren't just resting. They are forming an acoustic grid. By positioning themselves in a vertical array, they create a multi-layered sensor web that spans hundreds of meters of the water column. They are monitoring the thermocline, the layer where water temperature changes rapidly and where submarines often hide to avoid detection. When they are in this state, they are the most effective passive sonar array on the planet. We have begun to decode their codas, and the results are unsettling. They aren't talking about food sources or mating rituals. The mathematical structure of their clicks suggests they are sharing coordinates, global coordinates. Using the SOFAR channel, a pod in the North Atlantic can relay the position of a carrier strike group to a pod in the South Atlantic in a matter of minutes. The pattern of these codas bears a striking resemblance to the binary code used in early 20-bit computer systems. It is a high-speed, error-correcting language that suggests a level of tactical coordination that should be impossible for wild animals. When a sperm whale clicks at a submarine, it isn't just curious. It is pinging the target, analyzing the thickness of the steel, the heat of the engines, and the number of heartbeats inside. It is no longer a question of if they are intelligent, but what they are doing with that intelligence. They have spent 15 million years perfecting a global communication network that requires no satellites and no fiber optic cables. They are the true masters of the deep sound channel, and we are merely intruders in their acoustic domain. The more we listen to their code, the more we realize that they aren't just residents of the ocean. They are its administrators. When we look at the sperm whale, we must stop using the vocabulary of biology and start using the language of engineering. We are not looking at an animal. We are looking at a 200-ton engine of destruction. If you were to design a machine capable of surviving the crushing weight of 800 atmospheres while maintaining the ability to project a lethal acoustic beam, you would build exactly what we see in the cachalot. This is the God factor, the realization that their existence transcends simple evolution. They are biological platforms designed for a singular, high-output purpose, the domination of the acoustic spectrum. The physics of their bodies are geared toward maintaining this God factor. Their ribs are bound by flexible cartilage that allows the entire chest cavity to collapse without snapping, and their blood is saturated with high-density myoglobin that stores oxygen with a theoretical efficiency 10 times greater than our own. But it is the brain-to-body ratio and the specialized neural pathways that lead to the Spermaceti organ that suggest a more terrifying reality. They are not thinking in the way we understand it. They are processing data. They are biological computers that have spent 15 million years mapping every thermal layer, every trench, and every magnetic anomaly on the planet. This brings us to the most guarded secret in the history of the United States Navy's underwater acoustics program. For decades, the Navy conducted high-intensity sonar testing in the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean. Officially, these tests were stopped in the early 2010s due to environmental concerns and the protection of marine life. But the leaked internal memos tell a story that the Pentagon hoped would never reach the surface. The testing wasn't stopped to save the whales. It was stopped because the whales started answering back. During an exercise in 2012, a destroyer group operating near the trench began broadcasting high-decibel active sonar pings to track a simulated enemy contact. Within 11 minutes, the hydrophones on the lead ship picked up a rhythmic clicking that grew in intensity until it reached a volume that should have been physically impossible for a biological entity. The sperm whales in the area didn't flee, they converged. They coordinated their pulses, focusing their beams into a single, resonant frequency that matched the structural vibration of the destroyer's hull. The result was a phenomenon known as mechanical resonance. The crew reported a hum so powerful, it caused the steel decking to vibrate until men could no longer stand. When the ship returned to port, engineers found micro-fractures in the high-tensile steel of the hull and significant cavitational erosion on the sonar dome itself. The whales hadn't just made noise. They had used a weaponized frequency to crack the hull of a modern warship. The Navy realized that they weren't just disturbing the residents of the trench. They were engaging an adversary that understood the physics of sound better than any sonar technician on the planet. This incident changes everything we know about the sentinels of the deep. It links directly to the mystery of Point Nemo, the most remote place on Earth, the spacecraft cemetery, where the distance to the nearest human civilization is over 2,600 kilometers. It is here that the infamous bloop was recorded. But it is also here that the Navy's secret Guardian arrays have detected a constant low-frequency hum at 7.5 hertz. At this frequency, sound can travel through the very crust of the Earth. While the 7.5 hertz signal remains unidentified by mainstream science, conspiracy circles within the submarine community suggest it is a clock signal or a heartbeat from something far deeper than the Hadal Zone. And the sperm whales are the only ones tuned to it. Consider the possibility that the sperm whale is not the apex predator of the ocean. Consider that it is in fact the Guardian. Their constant patrolling of the Mariana Trench, their vertical sensor arrays, and their high-output acoustic cannons are not just for hunting squid. They are a biological buffer. They are the only thing standing between us and the sentinels, the entities that reside at 11,000 meters, where the light never reaches, and where the pressure is so great that biology as we know it should not exist. The Navy's fear of the pulse is not just about the damage it can do to a submarine. It is about what that pulse is keeping at bay. When a pod of sperm whales begins a coordinated creak, they are creating an acoustic barrier, a wall of sound that discourages whatever is breathing at the bottom of the Challenger Deep from rising into the upper layers of the ocean. We have spent centuries hunting the very creatures that have been protecting our shores from a threat we cannot even name. If you look at the global map of sperm whale migration, it aligns perfectly with the world's deepest trenches and most significant magnetic anomalies. They are stationed at the gates. They are the silent, biological sentries of the abyss, equipped with the most powerful sonar ever created, watching a darkness that we are only beginning to peer into. The abyss is watching back. We have ignored the warning signs for too long, dismissing the biological acoustic interference as mere animal behavior. But as our submarines go deeper and our sonar grows louder, we are beginning to realize that the handshake we felt decades ago was just the beginning. The grid is active, the sentinels are listening, and the sperm whale is the only thing keeping the seal closed. Subscribe to BeastFlix to keep the seal closed and to stay informed on the secrets they don't want you to hear. We are uncovering the truth, one frequency at a time. And if you think the whale's pulse is loud, just wait until you hear what is breathing at 11,000 meters. Click on this videos on your screen to watch it now.